Hello and welcome. It is episode 58 of the 6-Star Business Podcast. I am your host, Evelyn Clark. It is so good to be here today. Just an update for those of you who've checked in, called in, texted in, messaged in, all the rest. Thank you for your well wishes. The Northern Rivers region of Australia is cleaning up, rebuilding. It's going to take a while. There have been people on the ground for the last 13 days straight, saving people, animals, houses. And now, there's just been a big cleanup and it's continuing. So there are a lot of local heroes, people really who've jumped in. There's a lot of organisation going on to help get what's needed to the people who need it most. Very soon they'll start to rebuild, but really they're still in the middle of, unfortunately, ripping apart walls and internal structures of houses that are just ruined from floods, trying to get skips to pick up, mountains of household goods out on nature strips. It's starting to clean up. So that's where it's at. I just want to thank everyone for your well wishes and your inquiries. We are doing well. The spirit of community is alive and well here, and I've never seen such an amazing community band together before to help people without hesitation, without judgment. There's no division, there's no differences. We are simply a community, and that has just been amazing. So thank you to everyone. There is going to be a link in the show notes below if you want to donate, even if it's just $10. This is a foundation set up by a local community member. They've got a website being built whereby you'll be able to see the actual live transactions of that bank account. So there's no middle person, there's no admin going out of this. It is donations to actually go and buy things like generators and brooms and dryers and high pressure cleaning apparatus. So that's what's going on. It's called aussiehelpinghands.com.au. I'll put the link below in case you feel that you can share a few dollars for the community here. Right, on to our podcast episode today. Our guests today are just wonderful. They're all wonderful. All our guests are wonderful. I especially love the fact that our first guest, Angela Legh, has been through a disaster. Her home got burnt down in the wildfires. I think it was over 12 months ago. She does talk about this in the conversation, and has a wonderful way now of giving back to the world by helping children to enhance their emotional intelligence development. So teaching them how to honour and accept emotions. She's got a beautiful quote from Jack Canfield on her website, which you can see for the Soul Guru. And she brought a lovely energy and perspective to this conversation. Combined with that was Jonason Goldson. Now, what a beautiful mix this was, and you'll get that when you hear them speak. Jonason is a former high school teacher, but he's a TEDx speaker, trainer, coach. He's a community rabbi, and he has his own podcast as well. He's a columnist, and what he does is he goes into organisations and he helps them to bring ethics and respect and a sense of humanity into business. So he's got 6 books, he's very well travelled, just a fabulous human being, and together with Angela they just brought so much humanity to this podcast, and I was really grateful to have them. So folks, I'll leave it with you. So sit back, enjoy this, and I look forward to connecting with you next week. So here we are. This is a very international podcast episode today. I'm excited. Welcome, Jonason, Angela, and my co-host today is Remini. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
So good to have you. I'm excited. Remini, you're coming from the UK where it's late at night. It is early morning here in the east coast of Australia, where we're in summer. And I just heard Jonason talk about snow. So I love the fact that we can all come together from different corners of the globe and have completely different external experiences. And yet we're here together in the 6-Star Lounge. So welcome. yeah, to get things started, I always like to ask our guests a few questions so that we can get to know you a bit better. And maybe you could help us by sharing with us who you are, where you are in the world, who you serve, how you serve them, and maybe something that you'd like to do when you're not working so hard. So, who would like to kick us off?
I can do it.
Lovely.
I'm Angela Legh. I live in Taos, New Mexico, where, yes, it's snowing today. And what I do is I write children's fairy tales that teach emotional intelligence through the stories. And children and their parents are who I serve.
Lovely. Wow. That's very unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially to the podcast. And is what do you like to do when you're not writing
Oh,
children's
gosh.
stories?
I love to dance.
Hmm.
And it's under COVID, it's been a little bit hard because you can't go dancing anymore. But um, yeah, I love to dance. I love to draw and just be creative.
Nice. That's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonas, Jonason, over
Yes,
to
well,
you.
thank you. And Angela, it's serendipitous that we're here together because I come from a tradition of storytelling,
Um,
which influences my mission in life. I'm an Orthodox rabbi, and I spent 23 years teaching high school, but now I work with business leaders. I want to take the universal principles of Judaism as they apply to all human beings and help leaders create a culture of ethics that sets higher standards in order to earn loyalty and trust. And so my mission really is to enhance and promote healthier and more vibrant company cultures where there's so much acrimony, there's so much divisiveness in the world today, and if we hit those problems head on, we end up getting a headache most of the time. Politics and social issues are just so emotionally laden. But if we can recognize that civility and integrity in the business world is actually going to help us all make more money, we should all be able to agree on that. And then if we can improve our business culture, maybe that will spill out into the
Mm.
wider world.
mm,
And when I'm not working, my favorite thing to do is go hiking. My wife and I have been to quite a few of the national parks here in the United States, and that's what we love to do with our time off. And I'm located in St. Louis, Missouri, which is right in the middle of the United States, 5 hours from anything.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And for our listeners right now, what's beautiful is that as Angela and Jonason were talking, they both just had such smiles on their faces. And I always can sense when someone is truly in alignment with their genius and what they love doing is when they talk about it, they are smiling. And both of you were just radiating joy when you were speaking about what you do.
mm.
It's interesting. You mentioned that. I was on another podcast, and the host asked me, "What makes you smile?" And it occurred to me that when I started my speaking business, since then, I have had numerous people comment on my smile, which didn't happen nearly as often when I was teaching high school. Now, it wasn't that I didn't enjoy teaching high school, but there is, it's one dynamic to have the captive teenage audience, and it's a different dynamic to have adults who generally want to be there. So, yeah, this does make me smile.
Mm.
That's lovely. It is lovely. So, what does six star and being six star mean to you? It's
Mm.
the $6 million question.
I I am coming off of COVID, so I apologize for the coughing. But 6 star to me, it means just bringing love into business. It's treating people with respect. It's collaboration rather than competition. And that for me is really key. That whole, I don't believe that I'm in competition with anybody, because we are each a part of a fractal, a diamond, if we say, where my message will resonate with one facet of the diamond. Another person's message will resonate with people who are attracted to the other faucet. We're not in competition, we're doing the same work. And we can uplift each other by collaborating. And that's, to me, what six-star business is.
Well, I certainly can't find anything to argue with in what you just said, Angela. Um, I would add that, in particularly, the concept of 6 stars really resonates with me because we think of 5 stars as the top, as the best, and the whole principle of ethics is that we can always go a step beyond. Wherever I am now, there's always room for improvement. And this is the problem that businesses have when they over rely on compliance rules. Because I can say, I'm in compliance. Well, now I don't have to think anymore about whether it's actually right or wrong, or whether it's really what's serving the customer or is benefiting the culture. So the idea of the 6 star is that idea of really looking what's next. How can I improve? How can I be better today than I was yesterday? Because that's really the ultimate definition of a good person. A good person is somebody who's trying to be a better person. And the moment we say, okay, I've made it, I don't have to improve, I don't have to add anything, now we're in trouble because inevitably we're going to start backsliding.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I really love that. And what's interesting, Jonason, is you said about the continuous improvement as a person, and you didn't say how can we be better as a business, right?
They
Which
go hand in
is
hand.
typically
Yeah.
right. Okay. Which one comes first? Which the focus
Well,
game?
one of the lines I like to use is the biggest mistake a leader can make in business, or any business person can make, is to think that I have to choose between being good and being successful. Being good means having personal integrity, having core values, being honest, but it also refers to competency. I have to be good at what I do. So if I want to market myself as a trapeze artist, I better make sure I can do what a trapeze artist needs. It doesn't matter how good my character is when I'm flying through the air trying to grab somebody's wrists 100 feet above the ground. So it's almost a chicken and egg type of thing. I have to be a good person in order to be a good business person. But I have to be a competent business person in order to be good in the sense of fulfilling my commitments.
One of the things that I love about what both of you are saying, and I'm finding it very difficult not to jump in and just chat about millions of things here because there's so much good that you're saying, both of you. And one of the things you said, Angela, was about love in business and bringing love into business, and obviously that aligns beautifully with what you're saying. I can't say your name. Sorry, it's gone. It's late. But just the idea of the love in business and what you're doing, bringing the trust and the loyalty into the world and making sure that businesses do that. And the work that I do is all about humanizing business, and so everything that both of you are saying is so kind of beautifully aligned with actually how to reach that 6 star. Of course, is about being a good human and ensuring that you do love the people you're with and work with each other to make sure you've got that trust and that loyalty. And so I'm loving what you're saying and doing. So thank you. I haven't really got, beautiful what you're both doing. It's great.
It is a wonderful alignment. And in Hebrew, the word for love, the root of the word for love it comes from the word give. That the more we give, the more we invest in other people, the more we feel connection with them. And that runs so contrary to the way our culture is developed, where everything's about taking and what's in it for me. When I'm willing to give my energy and my time and my consideration and my thought and my concern to another person, naturally I'm going to become more invested and more connected and more committed to that person. So love really, it's not a warm and fuzzy idea when it comes to business. It's really integral. We are aligned. We do have a sense of common mission. We are looking out for each other. And what's a leader's ultimate job is to bring out the best in others.
Mm.
And when we're committed to bringing out the best in one another, then we're all going to succeed.
And of course, it's something that you were saying is it's the idea of actually ultimately it's people, and it's not about the business. Like Evelyn, you were saying is it's about the people and engaging with the people and that love within the business and that giving and that listening and that hearing and that engagement with each other is just the core of all business. What people work with people, not it's not about necessarily about the business. It's about who you're engaging with.
Yeah, and I believe it's also being in service. When we approach our business as I am in service to humanity, then we we apply ourselves in with our whole heart, and it creates a situation where people are attracted to what we provide because we are stepping out with this love for humanity.
And it seems to me that that ties in beautifully with what Jonason said around we still need to have that high level of competence. So if one is in tune with that, the competence of their skill, gift, genius, whatever you'd like to call it, combined with that genuine love, that desire to help others, that giving nature, that's when the magic happens.
Mm, you're using my favorite word. Magic.
Magic. Magic happens all the time, I
It
believe.
does.
We just have to be open to it
Yeah.
and be willing to see it.
And it goes back to your original observation. What makes us smile? What makes us smile is the sense that we're making a positive contribution in the world, and we're using our unique talents and opportunities to bring good together. If we can make a living at it at the same time, all the better. But there's no contradiction between those two. And the person who's truly rich is the person, the sages say, who's happy with his portion, which means that I have this sense of fulfillment and service and contribution. It's not just about me, it's about what I'm providing for others in the course of doing what is uniquely my place in the world and my opportunity in the world to provide.
Mm.
I'm going to ask a question, because this is something that I guess I've always been fascinated by, especially at this point in our history. We look at the growth of business, especially in the last 15 years since the birth of, social media, the internet, etc. There's more millionaires now than there ever has been before, etc. Is it wrong to pursue massive growth and wealth? So versus, simply delivering one's skill, their genius in the world and feeling good and feeling fulfillment by giving that. So where does it balance out? Do you know what I'm trying to say? If one focuses on just making money versus giving to others and making the world a better place through their genius and their gifts. What are your
I'm
thoughts?
yeah, I'm brought to, the 80s, the 90s were called the me decade, and people pursued wealth for wealth. And it was pretty empty because when you don't have purpose, wealth doesn't really, it, yeah, it's not a source of happiness. Yes, it buys things that make you temporarily happy, but when you are serving a purpose in the world, then it does, to me, it doesn't matter if my business succeeds or not, because what I'm doing means so much to me. And I I basically I think about the millennials of today. They go to work, but they want to have purpose in what they do. They want to make a difference in the world. And it's so different from when I was first starting in the work, where it was all about, hey, can you get a job that makes you the most money? And I really love that they're bringing this meaning into what we do.
Mm.
And I think you're right on target, Angela, when you talk about purpose. I believe that purpose really is the secret of happiness. And when it comes to money, money's a tool.
Mhm.
One of the great successes, well, financial successes of the industrial age was John D. Rockefeller, who founded Standard Oil here in the United States. He became massively wealthy, and he was a ruthless businessman, and he didn't treat his people very well, apparently. But towards the end of his life, he became one of the great philanthropists in the country, as he backed out of his business activities. He discovered he needed something to fill that void, and he donated enormous amounts of money. And Andrew Carnegie was famous for the libraries that he built all over the country. If I see money as the key to my own personal power or prestige or self-indulgence, that's probably not going to end up making me happy, and it's certainly not going to serve society. But if I'm using my talents to produce, to create, and in the process I become tremendously rich, it's not a challenge I've had to face in my life, but um, it's and I'm going to use that money to create philanthropic endowments and charities and ways of bringing people up and programs that can help the disadvantaged. Why not? The more the better. It's the sense that I think, at least in the United States, that you have um, wealth is being consolidated among fewer and fewer at the top in greater and greater numbers, and it's not being put back into the system for the benefit
Mm.
of those who are working to make that possible. That's when you have the resentment and the sense of inequity and the destabilization, which is what's really frightening.
Where do you see our current millennials? Because Angela, I know you're tapped into them, being a writer and of children's and teen books, and you would understand, I guess, the differences with where they're at, the way they process things and perceive the world. Are they going to bring in, do you see that there might be some big shifts? Are they going to bring in some changes about the way that they do business? If you compare them to what's happening now and what Jonason just described about,
I think,
yeah.
yes, that, when we look at cryptocurrency, that was created by a millennial. And I can just imagine the dinner conversation where he said, "Mom, Dad, guess what? I'm going to make some new currency, and it's going to be a big thing," and blah blah blah. And they're like, "Maybe you should be a lawyer." I bring that up because I truly believe that the upcoming generation are very old souls, and they're going to bring some amazing new technology and new magic into the world. But we just, as the adults, we need to listen to them. We need to allow them to try, even if they fail. So what? It's a learning experience. And so I see this next generation as bringing us so many new things. and they are the future. They're going to change the world. And I have so much respect for their ethics, for the way they see that they want to have purpose. I wish I had that when I was 20 years old.
I have a pretty good look. I have 4 children who are millennials and a son and daughter-in-law who are millennials. And there's a very impressive work ethic there. They're in various different types of careers. Um, One's a little bit more of a wandering spirit, but he's 29. He's settling down a little bit. But what has prevented him from really settling down is the sense that he really wants his life to mean something. He wants to contribute. He wants to develop his talents, and he's a very talented young man, and that sometimes is a bit of an obstacle because it's hard to narrow down. What can I do with myself? If I give up this option to take that option, well, what happens if that doesn't work out? And these are normal things that people have to deal with. But it's heartening to see that there is that sense of responsibility. Responsibility to my family, responsibility to myself, responsibility to the world. And if that characterizes the generation, then we're definitely heading in the right direction.
There is hope.
Yes.
Good dear. I'm really interested. I think both of you, I mean, obviously, Angela, you're a storyteller, and both of you have talked about storytelling. And I would be really interested to hear how, especially when we're thinking about the younger generation and the storytelling that you do and how important that is in business. How do you feel that storytelling can help the younger generation and actually help business overall and reach the 6-star? It's kind of interesting to hear from the storytelling perspective.
So to me, no child is going to go into a bookstore and ask for a self-help book on emotional intelligence. It's just not going to happen. But they will read a fairy tale. That in that fairy tale, there are seeds of emotional intelligence that can grow. And so it is through stories that we can impart information that maybe not listened to or not heeded. And this is why in my books I teach parents in the parents guide section to, when they're trying to talk to their kid about bullying or other things that are happening in their child's world, to tell stories about their own childhood, because that opens up the communication between them and their child, and their child can now see them as having empathy for what they went through. And so it is through storytelling that we can make a bigger impact than if we just try to impart information.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we've probably all sat through presentations filled with lots of data and bullet points, and and it might have been really interesting and really useful. And then when it's done, we can't remember a single thing because there's no context. And that's what stories do. Stories create the context that help us understand what the data means. And our brains are wired for stories. I mean, we know everybody loves a good story. And there are certain story archetypes that we tap into. I mean, the genius of Harry Potter was to tap into something that is universally relatable. On the simplest levels, the war of good against evil and light against dark, and overcoming obstacles, and conflicting loyalties and values. I mean, this is the stuff of the human experience.
Mhm.
And when we contextualize the data with compelling stories, we remember the story, and then we remember the information, we remember the theme, we remember the message, and it can stay with us our whole lives. So to be able to articulate powerful stories about whether it's business or human relations, family, these are the things that really can shape us from the inside out.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're emotional, right? We attach meaning to these stories and we feel into them because just we allow, yeah, that's how we keep that story inside. We remember how we felt along that story journey. Um, and I think now I see businesses thinking about using stories in their marketing a bit more because they've been told it's a good idea, or in videos. Yet I think we're in our infancy when it comes to telling vulnerable, open stories in presentations and other kind of context, and especially online. To be able to convey who we are. And I feel that we're getting there, but I think more people now are happy to share more about themselves, and especially the last 2 years since we've all been behind a computer screen and we have children running behind us and dogs barking and yeah. So yeah, stories so powerful. I totally agree. It's wonderful.
You even see in businesses they'll have job titles: chief storyteller.
Mm.
Oh wow.
I could do that.
Yeah. I mean, what does it
Yes.
mean? It means tell the story of the company, humanize the company.
Mm, mm,
We started here, we've come to here. This is where we're heading. This is our story. Um, it's one of the challenges that we have with the controversies in this country about tearing down statues of historical figures that were conflicted. I mean, the truth is, we're all conflicted. And when we start tearing down our history, we lose some of our story. And
mm,
so, on the one hand, we have to be very sensitive to people who may have good reason to be, to feel that this is not a figure that I want to be a hero. But at the same time, if we lose the narrative of our story, we forget who we are. We don't know where we've come from. If we don't know where we've come from, then we really don't know where we're going either.
mm,
That's beautiful. So very, very true.
mm. And I think it's so interesting actually because you need to know your story to reach your purpose, to find your purpose. I know once I'd started to define and recognize my history and my story, I was like, shortly afterwards, I was like, that's my purpose, but it was kind of, I think you've got to understand your story and what brought you to where you are and why should you be doing what you're doing and why you should be smiling at work, because you understand your story and listening to other people's stories, and it builds that trust and loyalty, and it's so important.
I remember because I lost my house in a wildfire in 2017. And at the time, I was working for local government. And my job was to be in the shelters. But I was also a victim of the fire. And so I couldn't bring myself to do government work because it just had no meaning. But what I did do was wander the shelter and talk with each individual family and heard their story and told them mine. And we were able to connect at a level that was unheard of before. And, these would be people that I would just pass in a grocery store. They were just people in the store. But now we had this connection. And sometimes it is through the stories during tragedy that really can bring people even closer together.
Well, I mean, that's the opportunity to tap into empathy.
Mm.
And, it's a little bit disconcerting to think that we need grief to bring us together. But, certainly historically, when there are wildfires, when there are tsunamis, when there are floods and tornadoes and earthquakes, and I mean, everybody comes together. What I think the challenge for us is, as human beings, is to achieve the same result through joy,
Mm.
rather than waiting for the next tragedy to bring us together. Let's look for opportunities to share each other's joy, and certainly in business, to celebrate successes, to acknowledge people who've made contributions, to recognize a team and not just individuals. It doesn't take that much creativity to find ways to boost the sense of camaraderie and to rejoice in one another's victories.
So
It's
interesting you say
almost,
that. Sorry.
oh, I was just going to say families that come together for funerals. And when they come together for a funeral, they often will say, oh, we should just meet otherwise because we never see each other. And so there is some truth to what Jonason said, that it is the tragedies that makes us come together.
Mm.
And the human condition could be improved if we choose to come together during the celebratory times too. So if families don't have to wait for a wedding to get together, and they don't have to wait for a funeral to get together, they can get together for a holiday, and just making that effort to really bring that joyous occasion into the family lexicon.
Then to celebrate life,
Yeah.
and each other.
I mean, it's so interesting when you think about what we've gone through with COVID and the coming together we did remotely and in person. I mean, I was thinking as we were talking, the times, I don't know if you did something similar, but in the UK, every Thursday at 6:00, everyone got on their doorstep and they clapped for the healthcare workers, and they clapped for all the people who were keeping us going. On the street, we have opera singers who live 3 doors down. We would sing on the street, and it was just lovely. It was a really we felt bound and connected. And of course now we're not doing anything like that, which is a shame, but we have come together as a street. But it was interesting, that was obviously adversity that brought us together. And I think one of the things that I found through all this kind of strange times is someone asked me what's the one word that COVID makes you think of, and I said friendship, because I've made friends during this time that I'd never have made if we hadn't had this kind of adversity, and it's something to celebrate. But one of the things you were saying was, actually this idea of celebrating and buoying each other up and celebrating a good. I grew up in the States, I'm in the UK now, and actually one of the things I always felt is that the American people were much better at celebrating successes, individual successes for people. And here in the UK, they're not so good at it. They're okay maybe with your family, but people think, oh, you're bragging if you say anything, you've done anything good. And that was always much better in the States for kind of, well done, you're doing well. And so I applaud you for that. And I think it's interesting because it's obviously a cultural thing. Different cultures celebrate different ways and different people, and it's something that I think we could all learn from each other to be better at taking the best bits of humanity and celebration of each other.
Mm.
And certainly if we're if I'm celebrating you and you're celebrating me, we're both going to feel a lot better than if I'm celebrating me and you're celebrating you.
Yes. But I suppose that's going back to the love in business, as it's kind of making sure that you are embracing each other in some form, which is important.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the whole concept of the sixth star, right? It's
Yeah.
going beyond that sort of psychological boundary. Here in America, we're always talking about our rights, and I think we'd be a lot better off if we talk about our responsibilities.
Mm.
Because if I'm looking out for your rights and you're looking out for my rights, we're going to be fine. If I'm worried about my rights and you're worried about your rights, we're going to be bumping into each other all the time.
Yes, and it's building that trust between each other to help.
And there has to be trust, exactly.
And respect.
And it's how to embrace the differences and live with those differences and those divisions that people may have, and actually enable people to still encourage the successes even when there may be some divisions of thought, and keep people happy and able to thrive and care for each other.
Well, that's certainly, the whole narrative about diversity these days. If we would see differences as a source of strength instead of something that sets us apart. They say if there are two partners in business and they're both good at the same thing, then one of them is unnecessary. The whole idea of opposites attract is a true phenomenon, because I want somebody who's going to complement me, who's going to fill in the areas where I struggle, and who will allow me to contribute what I'm good at. That's what creates good partnerships, whether it's in families or in business or in society.
And I think that if we look at each other through the lens of love, we actually see how we are the same rather than different. And it is in setting up these separations that causes so much pain. I grew up Roman Catholic, and I knew nothing about Judaism. I knew nothing about so many other religions. I'm now non-denominational. And basically, I use statements from the Talmud in my work because it's so true. And I use Taoism in my work, and these other ways of looking at the world actually expand my own perceptions, as opposed to just narrowly looking through my idea of what the world should be.
I really love that, Angela. So many ways. And I must say, as I'm listening to this conversation unfold, my mind is being sort of taking me back, or reflecting that everything that you're talking about, Jonason, when we're talking about celebrating joy and finding moments to connect in joy instead of using tragedy, and then how we connect, and then celebrating differences and living on purpose. I was like, who does that really well? Children.
Oh, yes.
Right? And we talked about children earlier. And I was thinking about my boys. I have twin 11-year-old boys, and Remini's got 2 young boys as well, similar ages. And they live and breathe that.
Yep.
And it's really interesting that even though I've heard many times, listen to the children, because, they have lots of wisdom, or we should be more childlike. And I just sort of got a sense of that then through this conversation, that it's really true.
One of my mother's favorite stories, which I've retold many times, it's the time my best friend Mark was coming over after school in first grade. And I told my mother that when she picked us up, that he got out a few minutes before I did, so he might be out there first. And she said, well, how will I recognize him? I said, well, I'll tell him to wear a red shirt. And I neglected to mention that Mark was black, which was not what my mother was expecting. And, apparently at that age, that was just an irrelevant detail to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at that age, children really are colorblind unless they've been taught otherwise. And that's an ideal that we should try to reclaim,
Yeah.
where we really look at people for who they are and not for the externals that we often focus on.
All over the world, if we slice a hand, we all bleed the same.
Mm.
We all bleed the same. We're all the same inside. It's the wrapping, the colors, the wrapping that we wear that make people perceive as different. But we are all the same. The most of the parents all over the world only want their children to succeed, however they decide that success is. And so their whole, the fathers, their whole life is about, how do I uphold my child? That's all over the world. It doesn't matter where the people live.
If we could just bring that into our work a bit more,
Yeah.
our kind of business, and to live like that. I mean, one of the things I'm always trying to encourage my clients to say is, actually try to not think of your clients as friends, but if you look at the way you're engaging with your people, and the way you engage with your family and friends, what's the difference? And actually work with the people you're working with in the way that you're trying to strive to make friends with them, and actually treat them with respect and care, like you care for them and you love them. Obviously, in maybe different degrees and things, but actually, it's, if you try to be kind and you try to care, then you're going to, surely everyone wants to be happy, everyone wants to thrive, everyone wants everyone else to be happy, but hopefully. But actually, if you think about your work and you think about the way your children view the world and what you want for your children, why not want that for your people around you? As a thought.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think we could all take a leaf out of that book, and what I'm getting from this conversation is, we started with love and people and responsibility, and we're still there. We've come back, and I feel that I feel a sense in society that we are wanting more connection, but we actually want more real. I think there's been a lot of things that have happened in the last couple of years, more so in the last year. I feel that people have become more aware of their own sense of responsibility to each other. And when it comes to business, that is becoming more real as well. And as consumers, we are more discerning about how we buy, who we buy from, because we want to know, who is that person really? What are their values? What do they stand for? Where does this product come? How's it been sourced? Has it harmed the environment? Is it supporting child labor in Asia? We are asking more of these questions. And I'm seeing it more and more. And I feel like it's only a good thing. And I'd love to hear from you, Weave, what you feel about that, and where we're going, where it's headed, what trends you see. Yeah.
You go ahead, Jonason.
Okay. Um, it's easy to focus on the negative and how much division there is, and how much partisanship. Um, but what I've found, in fact, I was recently just asked, what are you optimistic about? And I spent a lot of my time on LinkedIn, and I've found just wonderful connections there. I mean, people engaging in conversations that are thoughtful, that are purposeful, that are respectful. And somebody asked me what website do I go to most often. I thought about it, and I was almost embarrassed to answer that it was YouTube, because YouTube, while it is filled with stuff that you really shouldn't be consuming, it's filled with an enormous amount of material that is extremely deep and thoughtful and engaging on a mature, intellectual, and emotionally healthy level. And I think that the society right now we're in a bit of a tug of war between a slide into moral anarchy and a backslide. That's not the right word. A counter movement of people who want to reclaim a sense of responsibility in our thinking, in our speech, in our relationships. And that's what makes me hopeful. That sometimes when we get a glimpse of how close to the precipice we are, that awakens within us a sense of urgency that we really have to do more to stabilize ourselves, to steady ourselves, and to back away from those behaviors that may feel good in the moment, but ultimately are not in our own best interest.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that really resonates very, very strongly. And I like what you said about when you were about to say the backward slide or the counter movement. I had an image of someone going back up reverse up the grassy hill.
Yeah, and I believe when I think about global warming or I think about some of the issues that face the earth, there are so many young people that, in terms of deforestation, there's a young woman in the Philippines who came up with a way for the society, instead of clearing ground for cattle, to plant coffee beans. And they are better compensated by planting coffee beans than if they ever did the mass clearing for cattle feed. And it's those little tiny movements that are happening in so many areas all over the world that are the hope. That's, those, they're going to add up. It's going to add up. And eventually we're going to get to a place where corporations that believe that their profitability is more important than how they treat the earth or the people, those corporations are going to end up falling apart because they're not going to get supported by society. Society is going to get to a point where we expect that we don't rape the earth in order to make a profit, that we treat the earth with the same respect that we treat people with, and that we don't do things for the almighty dollar. We do things for the benefit of humanity.
It sort of
I was
reminds
on a
me of,
panel a couple of years ago. It was called Faith and Climate Change. And they had a Muslim woman, a Baptist minister, a Catholic professor of climate sciences, a Hindu Swami, and me. And the only person who was really talking about climate change was the moderator. The rest of us were talking about exactly what you just said, Angela. That we have a divine mandate to be custodians of the world and be responsible custodians, and that's part of our job as human beings. And it doesn't mean that we don't benefit from the land. It
No.
means that while we're benefiting from the land, we treat the land with respect. And we recognize that the resources are not unlimited and that we have to be disciplined in our behavior if we want to have a healthy world to live in.
And that goes back to the responsibility.
yeah.
It does.
Exactly.
I mean, it reminds me of when we were all in hard lockdown. Of course, the animals came out, and the world improved, and the climate, the kind of the environment improved, and
There were
came
dolphins
into
and
the
yeah,
Venice canals, and you just think, wow. But then, and I think everyone kind of recognised the Earth was healing itself. But then I wonder how much is that, have we gone back, and how do we embrace what happened and remember that happened, that we did, the Earth was trying to fix itself. I don't know whether there's an answer to that, but I don't know.
yeah. I remember when the M5 was empty, and there were like
Yes.
foxes running across it. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. It was something else, and clearly, I don't believe that we've turned the corner yet. I think that there are still corporations that don't take into account what they do to the earth. But I believe that we're on a path, that we will get there. And I believe it is the next generation who will get us there.
Yes. I have to just say, my kids are doing a fete this summer, and they're doing floats, and it's all about saving the earth. And so my kids, they're 8 and 9, and their school is doing deforestation, and so they're trying to express kind of how to help the forests and things. And you think, that's the way, and it is about storytelling. It's telling the children what's happened and how things can be improved, and make them proud of the fact that they are the next generation. So it all pulls it back, doesn't it? It's about loving each other and loving the earth and telling stories to teach our children.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, I feel like we've kind of come full circle, with the responsibility, being childlike, tapping into our purpose, feeling joy and love, and moving forward. It sounds to me like what's really important is this level of awareness and self-responsibility, and that we are going to be facing more challenges. And Angela, you're talking is what you mentioned about corporations, and that we're not quite there yet, and that corporations there's a way to go before they become more, I don't know, is it self-aware and responsible, and if they can be. However, I guess in closing, what I'd love to hear from you both is perhaps some parting thoughts around how we can be Six Star as individuals and in business moving forward to create the new, to create this beautiful world of where we are responsible and united and connected.
Jonason, I'd love to hear from you on this.
So much for ladies first, right? Well, I'm often asked to define ethics. And while there are many nuances, the simplest formulation I've come up with is the discipline of taking responsibility for the impact our actions have on others. And it requires a little bit of commentary because, ethics is also when I'm alone. Having integrity means that I'm living a life of consistency, of moral consistency, and that my values don't require me to be observed in order to do the right thing. But our private behavior will eventually become our public behavior, and vice versa. And so we really need to be responsible and accountable all the time. It's somewhat easier nowadays when we know that we could be videoed at any moment and that anything we do could end up going viral. It's sort of a perhaps helpful reminder that I'm never really alone, because who knows who's looking through my window videoing me. But it's that sense that everything we do, every action, the way we speak, the things we say, the way we treat people, the way we treat ourselves, everything we do sends out ripples. And we have no idea where those ripples will go. And eventually they're going to come back to us. And that if I have this sensitivity that I am responsible for my environment, I'm responsible for my family, I'm responsible for my neighborhood, I'm responsible for my business and for my society, and that my impact is essential. Every person makes a difference, for better or for worse. And I want to do what I can do to make a positive impact, because that's what it means to be a member of a society.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Wow.
Angela, would love to hear yours. Yeah.
I would just, there's nothing to argue about with what Jonason said. I might expand it a little bit in that every thought we have is a prayer, and every word we use is a prayer. And whether or not you believe in the God that I believe in, it doesn't matter. But we all are responsible not only to ourselves, not only to our families and our business and our societies, but to the world, to our higher entity, however you want to call it. If we speak from the heart instead of from our mind, then we're using words that are positive prayers. If we become triggered and go into our minds and we speak words that are in blame, that are accusatory, then that is the prayer we are giving the world. And so if we ask ourselves, what prayer do I want to give the world in this moment?
That's really beautiful. Really, really, really profound. Wow. You both have just left me a little bit speechless, and I feel like I've got to just sit in silence for a while after this now and just process it all. But it's just been juice. It's the start of my day. It's the most beautiful way to start my day. So thank you. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation on so many levels.
That's amazing.
Well, thank you for
I'm
inviting
quite
us.
emotional. It's beautiful.
Thank you all. Much gratitude, and I wish you a beautiful evening and afternoon.
Thank you. It was very much a pleasure speaking with all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was amazing.
And thank you.